In the previous segment, I had discussed the search for accountability. We can cut to this one, of how the Allied liberated the death camps and searched for accountability. My experience with what I found to be a hate group was that these guys behaved piss poorly. They behaved so bad that I found parallels to the Nazi regime. I've shown that in the last few videos. Now I'm searching for accountability. The method that was used in World War II with the defeat of the Nazis and the Allied liberation of Europe was to find accountability back where they started at Nuremberg in a tribunal. Now, incidentally, my dad was a bomber pilot in World War II and he became a bit of a peacenik because of his experience. My experience has made me rather hawkish because I've put up with this crap. Now, I'm trying to take a moral high road here in finding some resolve. Incidentally, one of our family friends is deceased, a great guy, I knew him for decades, drank a lot of scotch with him, was one of the most decorated pilots. He flew next to my dad. His name was Robert Rosenthal. And he was, like my dad, a citizen soldier who became a bomber pilot. And he was a lawyer before the war, and after the war he continued to kind of conclude this thing as a lawyer at the Nuremberg tribunals. He met his wife Phyllis on a boat over there, and that is the litigious way to solve the problem. And what happened is a search for accountability, and I found it with these guys in the same way the Nazis behaved. They ran like weasels. So they brought them in, as we showed over there, into the death camps to show. But the higher ranking ones would flee to Argentina, etc. I experienced a case, and I had mentioned how in our system, and we believe in second chances here, but you have to take accountability. I went through a situation where I found what I found to be, as I mentioned earlier, the French coolie bully, and I said, it didn't sit well with me the way that all went down, and felt hurt, and this was like 3 years ago. And I said, this wasn't right. And I'm hurt and upset. You know what he said? Psst. When you leave a property, you are gone and that is that. Such a dismissive attitude and no accountability. Well, that raised my ire. That's the same thing that happened with the Nazis. So what they did here, now here's the Nuremberg tribunals, as they brought them in and they held them accountable, and they had lawyers, they had a bunch of translators. This guy's crazy, he's got his sunglasses on, these are all like Nazis, and these are like MPs, and these are like the lawyers. And Rosie was there doing the thing. So they hung a bunch of them, and they said they searched for accountability. And that's one method. And I think it's an interesting method. It's what we try and take the high road and find accountability. However, come to me now. As an artist, and also, as I mentioned, I'm a bit hawkish because I've gone through this, and it raised my ire. What I found as an interesting method of searching for accountability was another method where a number of Jews were so pissed off at the Nazis that they went after them personally. And this may be a little bit of that. This is maybe a little bit of, if you've seen the film Tommy Boy, which is kind of my life story as a nepotism son of a business owner and a bit of a screw up myself, and I'm proud to say that. But in Tommy Boy, he brought the media together and took out this Sandusky guy who was played by Dan Aykroyd, and he made a point of it. So he went after him personally. So some of these Jews were so pissed off at the Nazi regime that they found the guilty ones and they wanted to take justice in their own hands. Now, you can't do this. It's not right, and I'm not promoting it, but it's rather interesting artwork. So now I've partied a lot, and I've lost a lot of friends to partying, and that's sad because I've had friends overdose, and they've done either on their birthday where they've taken way too much, or else they've been so toxic. And that's what they tried to do, was poison some Nazis. They found a bunch of them in a internment camp who were guilty or alleged guilty. They were waiting trial at the Nuremberg. And they said, we can't have this, and we're going to give them literally a taste of their own medicine. So they went after them, and they couldn't find poison. enough poison. So they got a little poison. They knew the baker who was making their bread, and he doses their bread with poison. Well, as I mentioned, obviously these guys hadn't been around the later half of the 20th century where people had partied with the recreational drugs to the point of death. And so they know that the limits is either super toxic, but a little bit's not going to cut it. So here we come over here, and this is an image. So what they did is they poisoned all these Nazis, and with about until the point where that's not working. Stay on that. So what they did is they poisoned these guys to the point where they had become ill. So they were spewing. They vomited. So this is vomit. We're going to make this artwork cool. So they're fucking projectile vomiting. This is projectile vomit, riding the porcelain bus. That was a result of them to sustain their life so that they wouldn't be overdosed. To come to me. So this is another method of seeking justice. It's a vigilante thing, and we can't have that in this country. So based on my experience of a family friend who did it the litigious way and my desire for this sort of thing, and as an artist, I've come up with a unique program that addresses my desire to seek justice and make the world a better place without harming, and because I am actually a sensitive guy. So what I'm suggesting is that, come here, people who have done badly wrong, like these guys, or these guys who I have allegations against, if they come to me, if they agree to this program, which I call outing the bad guys. Did you see Spinal Tap? Spinal Tap is a funny spoof movie where he talks about the amplifier going to 11. It's one louder. You see, we wouldn't literally be outing them. We wouldn't be deporting them, but I would fly a DC-3, a big old plane like a C-47 they had in the war, and they would jump and they would be outed, and they would volunteer to do this as a way for redemption. And this would be a really fun project for me, and I think it would do some good, and it would be a nice period piece. Remember, bring on the dancing horsemen. This was up on the bottom. We lost one here. So in that video, they had hobby horses. It's funny that this would fall. So they had horses, hobby horses, and they're riding around hobby horses, come to me now. So they're riding around on hobby horses. So my video would be a period piece of how, in our times, we're speaking about our isolationism and people being fed up to here with horseshit. So we'll make this movie, and they won't be hurt, they won't be harmed, they won't suffer any litigious actions, and they'll step up to the plate. Now, immigrants are a great asset to our country, and when they're used as coolie bullies, they're an asset to the organization to whom they serve because they're helping their profitability. But in terms of the values of our country, here's how we're going to impart that. I'll fly the plane, they'll jump out, it'll be a silly spoof, but you see, we'll all be laughing together, and it'll be good fun, and when we're laughing together, it's kindness, and these are the values that I hold dear as a whimsical artist. Now this thing has kind of brought me to the dark side, so I'm trying to find the path of lightness, and I think that's one path of lightness. You know, this was a path of darkness over here to hurt them to the point, you know, where they did survive, but they had to puke. So those are some ideas, and this is time to paint these little paintings in our next segment and conclude this monkey show. Thank you.